Explanation of the evidence at the Pentagon on 9/11, created by Wayne Coste, narrated by David Chandler. Here is the table of contents, and here is the table of contents for chapters 9 to 17. Chapter 6, Review of the C-ring exit hole at the Pentagon. The hole in the C-ring, wedge 2, resulted from the plane impact. The debris outside the C-ring exit hole contains some aircraft parts, Pentagon office materials, and body parts. There has been much conjecture about what caused the opening. Conjecture claims are that it is a perfectly round hole, it was created by shape charges, and there was no path for material to travel between the E-ring entrance hole and the C-ring exit hole. However, detailed review shows that several clear paths do exist through the columns. Furthermore, the C-ring wall in wedge 2 was only 2 bricks thick and that no significant bracing of the wall was apparent. Only wedge 1 was refurbished with a blast-resistant design. The dividing line between wedge 1 and wedge 2 is the center line of the side of the Pentagon. So the exit hole shown here was actually between columns 5-0 and 7-0 in wedge 2. If you count the layers of windows, you can see that between the B and C rings, there are 4 layers of windows, but enough space underneath for an extra floor. The ground floor did not have windows, so it's 5 floors deep. Between the other rings, there are only 3 floors showing, the bottom 2 being continuous open space. The ASCE Building Performance Report, that's the American Society of Civil Engineers, showed columns that are larger than they really were for purposes of clarity of their color code rather than for accurate representation of the column diameters. If we take these column sizes literally, there are no clear paths from the impact point to the exit hole. However, if you correct for actual size of the columns, there would be appropriate paths. If you construct the layout with the actual column sizes 21 inches by 21 inches, there are 3 paths with significant width, allowing debris to travel in straight lines from the entrance hole to the exit hole that goes through the columns at a 50-degree angle. This diagram has the C-ring exit hole at the top, so debris would be traveling from the bottom right to the top left. These paths are 1.1 feet, 2.3 feet, and 2.5 feet wide, as shown. What we see in the debris that spilled out on the AE drive is that it's distributed at the same angle as the internal path. Let's look at some inside photos. The green arrow marked here is looking toward the exit hole, which is at the top left. The photographer is shooting between columns 3M and 3N. You can see column 5N in the background on the left of the photo. Here, column 3M and 3N are shown in the foreground. Column 5N seems to be in bad shape compared to 3M and 3N, and then you can see the exit hole in the background. Here is a close-up of the exit hole from the previous image. Here's a different photo of the exit hole from a later time, when a lot of the debris has been cleaned up. Let's look at how we can validate the path width. One inside photograph can be used to validate the estimates used here. This photo was taken between columns 3M and 3N, looking toward the C-ring exit hole at approximately the angle of the plane debris path. Objects in the photo establish the relative size with certainty. The wheelbarrows are 20 inches wide. Column 3N is 21 inches square. This photo was taken at the same angle between these columns. Using the sizes of the physical objects for comparison, we see that the perpendicular width of the path, indicated here by the 2 red dots, is about 6 feet. The diagram in the ASCE Building Performance Report located the columns correctly, but they used oversized symbols, as we have said, in order to clarify the color code. So it cannot be used to rule out possible debris paths without correcting for the oversized column symbols. What we see here is that the wheelbarrow is about 20 inches wide, giving a path width as indicated. So the graphical measurement appears to hold up. The exit hole photos as seen in the AE drive. This is one of the early photos with smoke rising from the exit hole, showing a lot of material in the hole and spilled outside the hole. Here we see the external debris distribution to be at an angle. Had the debris been scattered from an internally placed explosive, it would have scattered more symmetrically. In fact, the direction of travel of the exterior debris is in line with the 50-degree path from the entrance to the exit hole. Here's another early photograph of the exit hole. The debris outside has a lot of bricks near the wall, suggesting that it just crumbled away. We can see an interior plaster and wire mesh wall that was not destroyed, and we can see some plumbing pipe that was not destroyed. There are some large parts outside with substantial mass. We have a few of the wheel pieces and a tire. Here we see the tire and some landing gear parts. This photo shows the tire on the right and a wheel rim on the left. There is oral testimony from firefighters. This particular crew describes how they approached the hole. They saw a piece of a wheel and countless shards of wreckage. They said some of the pieces looked like plane seats, and they described some body parts. Lieutenant Colonel Erkenbrack: I looked left and I saw this huge hole and what looked like a piece of the landing gear. The wheel and a piece of the landing gear, about 10 feet of landing gear, had just sheared off and punched a huge hole in the C-ring wall, and had come to a stop against the back side of the B-ring wall. Later on, talking about the debris outside the exit hole, he says, I was in the back side of the C-ring. Question: but the landing gear was between C and D? Answer: it was in the breezeway between the C-ring and the B-ring. Question: but it partially punched a hole? Answer: yes. It means EDC. It had punched a hole through the C-ring wall and stopped against the B-ring wall. The wall of the C-ring appears to be 2 layers thick of just regular bricks. The ASCE report says the first story of the AE drive is brick infilled in the concrete frame with no windows. Columns on either side of the C-ring hole are approximately 20 feet apart. There is no significant intermediate support observed between the columns. The exit hole is between column 5-0 and 7-0 in wedge 2. What you see here is the interior plaster and wire mesh wall that was not destroyed, and then bricks from there to the exterior surface. The pipe bent outward is best explained by a momentum event, not explosives. You can also see from the inset that the width of the wall is only 2 bricks thick. Here's a photo of the FEMA Urban Search and Rescue Team. The inset showing the edge of the hole makes it really clear that the bricks are only 2 layers thick. Here's another image showing that there are only 2 layers of bricks, and then the wire mesh and plaster behind it. Looking back toward the impact area. Here we see the camera looking back from the exit hole, and you can see clear through to the other side. The light spot on the left appears to be internal working lights, but the light spot on the right is a window in the E-ring outer wall. This illustrates the fact there are no interior partitions between the outer wall and the C-ring exit hole. If you zoom in, you can even see details outside on the Pentagon lawn. Floor plans showing the columns to scale do exist. Here, the Arlington After Action Report has columns drawn to scale, much smaller than the columns shown in the ASCE report. This is from the Defense Studies series, and they have the columns drawn to scale. Going through, looking at the internal debris paths in more detail. The older, erroneous prior analysis showed no clear path for debris from the impact area to the exit hole. Imprecise language such as slurry of debris and flowing around columns was unfortunate. A slurry of debris would dissipate a lot of momentum and would lack the impact to knock down the C-ring wall. It can't explain the tire or landing gear and other heavy debris. This imprecise explanation leads some people to charge that there was planted evidence. So it is important to take a more precise look at the path. The flawed analysis stems from using the ASCE Building Performance Report diagrams for the analysis. If the drawn sizes were taken literally, they would be 65 inches square, instead of the actual 21 inches square. Other drawings, as we have seen, show the column to the correct scale, and they are the ones that should be relied upon for measurements. When Wayne did this analysis, he started from the diagram of the ASCE report. He then put small markings inside the columns indicating the actual sizes of the columns. Once they were located, he removed the larger columns from the ASCE report, and then he removed the columns that were marked as destroyed, which were marked either pink or red in the ASCE report. And then he removed the columns that were marked as impaired that may have been pushed to one side or whatever. This is what we have. Now let's go through a graphical analysis of the debris pathways through the columns. If you start with the entry point and draw parallel lines through the columns, you can see how Wayne came up with the 3 paths he indicated earlier. Estimated path widths 1.1, 2.3, and 2.5 feet wide. This analysis includes the columns marked as impaired. Wayne has highlighted column 5N at the top left that we saw was severely damaged by debris. The condition of this column, as well as the exit hole, points to a flow of debris with considerable momentum. If you don't show the impaired columns, this is what it would look like. Zooming in again, here are the 3 clear paths with the calculated widths. Conclusions. 3 paths exist through the columns. This explains how there could be projectiles of significant mass that can make it all the way through to the exit hole. The 3 paths range from a foot to 2.5 feet wide. The C-ring exit hole is in the original 1942 Wedge 2 wall. The hole was 19 feet wide, 10 feet tall, made of unreinforced brick, 2 layers thick. The debris distribution in the AE drive is consistent with the 50-degree angle of the flow of material. This is to call attention to a good source of photographic imagery of this event. It's called American Heat. This is a series of videos from a bunch of firefighter video photographers who happened to be nearby and came and photographed at the Pentagon in the afternoon of 9/11. One of their videos is available through interlibrary loan. There's not a lot of extra detail in it, but it's a good source of original footage. In the next chapter, we will look at the radar and FDR data and the plane's approach path.